So we are back with another episode of Around the League for week number 4 in the NFL. This one though is going to be a little bit different. If you had watched or at least kept up with the scores from this past weekend, had a lot of games that were just pretty much out of hand. We obviously talked about one of them earlier with the Dolphins and the Bills, but about half the games this week were pretty much blowouts, with a lot of them being 17-point or more victories. So we're going to go through all those games, kind of talk about what's surprising, what wasn't as surprising, and what really led to these games being so out of hand like they were. So starting with the Ravens and the Browns, we talked about this game last week in our football weekend picks. We both picked the Ravens, but we thought this was going to be a close game. And I think when we did our picks, Deshaun wasn't injured yet, or he might have been injured the day of. I'm not sure exactly, but Deshaun Watson, he wasn't playing. He's been kind of up and down anyway this season, but him not being there, that's going to be kind of an issue. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he did look good in preseason. Unfortunately, though, as you pointed out before the video started, he did not look nearly as good in this one with 3 interceptions.
Yeah, and then juxtaposed to that, Lamar Jackson just throws only 19 passes, but completes 15 of them, gets 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, rushes in for 2 touchdowns. Really big difference in this play on quarterback there. Not to shame DTR for any reason there. I mean, Lamar Jackson's a tough guy to be compared to in your first big start. But yeah, just doesn't go well for them. I mean, Lamar is able to get the run going. The Baltimore team is able to get the run going. Lamar finds Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews on some very comfortable plays. And the Ravens just kind of stay up and don't really look back after their first quarter. Take a big 28-3 victory over their divisional opponent. The next game is an interesting one if you were to think about this without any knowledge of how the season had been going. But the Titans beat the Bengals 27-3. This would now mark the second time that the Bengals only scored 3 in the game this season. The other one being Week 1 against the Browns. Browns defense has been pretty solid except for that game against the Ravens there. This one is interesting. Joe Burrow just doesn't quite look ready to go. Tannehill plays a decent game. Derrick Henry threw a touchdown in this game. Derrick Henry also back to his King Henry form, rushing for 122 yards and a touchdown. This one, the Bengals just haven't been impressive this season. Jamar Chase voiced some frustrations after this game, and they fall to 1-3 in a pretty horrible fashion. As I said, they've now been blown out in 2 of their games. Their third loss was a close one against the Ravens, and then they edged out the Rams. It looked like maybe they were on the right track. Blown out by the Browns, climbed back against the Ravens, got past the Rams with a victory. Now it's right back to the bottom as the Titans have won 2 games this season in very weird ways. And this one is weird to me in that this Bengals team isn't one that I expect to be getting destroyed. But Tannehill and Derrick Henry come in and pick them apart.
Yeah, you have to give credit to Ryan Tannehill. I mean, I know he's been under a lot of scrutiny since that playoff game against the Bengals. And I think the Titans have been probably the weirdest team to kind of predict, since that playoff game, since they lost when they were the number 1 seed. They've been just kind of up and down, kind of weird. But you mentioned Derrick Henry back to King Henry form with 125 yards just about on the ground. Last week he had like 20. So yeah, definitely getting back to Derrick Henry that we know. Obviously, Joe Burrow, the injury, that's going to affect him. But I mean, even besides the injury, Bengals have just not been good. I mean, putting up 3 points twice this early in the season, getting beat like this. These are professional players. I mean, this is the injury. You can only go so far with that. And I know they went 0-2, went to the Super Bowl, went 0-2, and went to the championship game. But now that you're 1-3, I mean, I don't know. And you could very well easily be 1-4 or 0-4, I should say. They didn't beat the Rams by that much. So, yeah, I think it is a little bit of a panic time for the Bengals. Yeah, they could get it turned around, but I don't think that this is just, okay, there's not too much concern here. We just have to get Joe Burrow healthy. Like, sure, but you don't know exactly when he's going to be fully healthy. He's probably not going to be fully healthy for a while. So I don't think they're going to shut him down by any means. But yeah, it's not just nothing. So they've definitely got some issues they got to work out. Then moving on to the NFC South, our division, they have the Bucks and the Saints. Now, this is this matchup is always crazy. It's always something, either really close game or a blowout. It's just really weird. This time, you had the Bucks blowing out the Saints 26-9. This one, Baker Mayfield once again looked pretty impressive outside of just one interception. Looked really good. Bucks definitely improved off of that game that they had against the Eagles. They actually put up points in this one. Looked pretty good on offense. On the other side, Derek Carr throwing the ball 40 times, only 130 yards. The whole situation, obviously, he was coming off the injury. He was going to not even play, but he did. Saints didn't have a good game. Alvin Kamara, not super impressive. And outside of him, no real running game to speak of for the Saints. So, not the typical game that we expect from the Saints against the Bucks, considering how many of these games had went over the last few years. But definitely one they want to forget.
Yeah, Bucks come in and handle business. Baker Mayfield, Chris Godwin, big games for them. Godwin 114 yards, and then yeah, I mean you said it, the rushing game. Kamara's back. He gets 51 yards. Other than that, nobody gets more than 10. And the person with 10 is Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston comes in to relieve Derek Carr and throws an interception and does nothing else. That's it. He comes in and goes 0 for 1 with a pick. Not a great day at the office for him as a backup. And then Derek Carr, yeah, throwing the ball 40 times and getting 130 yards only is pretty bad. So that one's a pretty clear show of how they go down. They do put up, I think, the most points of any of the losing teams in this segment that we'll talk about today. They put up 3 field goals, so congrats to them. They win that part of this category, but the Buccaneers will walk away with a pretty big win. Going from there, we have one that I definitely would not have expected to go this way, but the Texans beat the Steelers 30-6. CJ Stroud, rookie quarterback, has a phenomenal game. 16 for 30 is not the best completion percentage, but he does go 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Big game for him. Devin Singletary gets in, throws a trick play touchdown. A lot of fun stuff going on. Dameon Pierce rushing for 81 yards. Nico Collins with 170 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Huge day for the Texans offense. Steelers offense, however, not quite so huge. Kenny Pickett throws the ball just 23 times, but comes up with just 114 yards and a pick. Mitch Trubisky throws 5 times, gets 18 yards. That's just kind of coming in. His game's over. Najee Harris does a little bit more than he has been doing. Big 32-yard reception for him. But yeah, I mean, this Pittsburgh Steelers offense just hasn't really been able to make any waves. And this Texans offense has come in this season and looked really strong. And that continued here. The only thing that changed for this game, I think, is that the Steelers defense has been really strong looking, really dominant looking. They weren't able to do much in this one. And the Texans came in and put up 30, I'd say fairly easily. And they 10 in the first quarter, 6 in the second, 14 in the fourth. They just kind of come in and roll. And that Steelers defense doesn't make much of an impact against CJ Stroud and company.
Yeah, I mean, the past few years now, outside of that thrashing by KC in the playoffs and Man's game, outside of the thrashing that they got from San Francisco early in this season, it's pretty much been their defense. Now that's not, I mean, it's Steelers football. I mean, they do predicate themselves on defense, but I feel like it hasn't been that imbalance in history until now. I mean, it's really, you got the stars on defense. They're pretty much had to make plays, having to score, do everything. The offense, again, they have talented guys. We talked about this. You can't blame everything on Matt Canada, but at some point, how many years are we just talked about this before the segment. How long we expected to just sit here and watch Steelers offense try to play football? Like it's just not fun to watch. Like it's bad. It's rough. I know there's a college team that has somewhat similar uniforms that we can kind of think about when we watch the Steelers offense, and we call them Iowa Hawkeyes. Not very fun either. It's I'm not even a Steelers fan by any stretch of the imagination, but at some point, I know Mike Thomas said there's going to be changes. I highly doubt they're going to fire Matt Canada in the middle of the week. When Kenny Pickett just got injured, we'll have to see how he is. I doubt they're going to do that. But I don't know, man. Like it's just, you can give the Texans all the credit in the world too. By the way, I'm not taking anything away from them. CJ Stroud, like you said, he had a pretty good game in 300 yards already. So he's looking good after kind of meh start week 1. But yeah, the Steelers, defense could do it for him in this game, and the offense, 6 points. Seems like it's just the same story with them over and over. So they got to figure something out, seriously. And again, I don't think they're gonna fire anybody halfway through the season, but should have just come before the season, if we're being honest here. But we'll move into the last game to talk about the Cowboys. Them boys, they put it on the Patriots there. I'm still thinking about the Pittsburgh Steelers here, but yeah, the Patriots. This was rough. Mac Jones, Big Mac Jones, he did not have a good game. Turnovers galore. He darn near turned. There was a play where he almost over again, like threw it right to a defender in his face. I'm like, Mac clearly just does not have it today. But once again, the Cowboys, we talked about this. All their games this season that they've won, they've dominated. But one game they lost, they didn't look amazing in against the Cardinals. But yeah, the defense once again gets it done for them. They've been pretty much winning these games for them. The offense is doing well, but they just haven't had to. We haven't had to see that play Cowboys offense just yet. But I think against the Niners, they're going to have to come out pretty strong.
Yeah, this was just another textbook Cowboys win for this season, right? Not only does the defense hold off the opponent, right? Dallas opponents this season have scored 0, 3, and 10. Patriots being the 3. But Dallas' defense is usually responsible for a lot of the touchdowns. So there's 2 defensive touchdowns in this game. Pick 6 on a fumble recovery for a touchdown. And insane things going on there. Obviously, Arizona breaks that mold, comes out with a win. Josh Dobbs and company get a win over the Cowboys. This is just another textbook Cowboys win. The defense doing a lot of it. Dak just kind of doing what he needs to do and not turning the ball over. The rushing game is not as good as we think of, but the passing game does really good. Jake Ferguson plays good football here. But yeah, Mac Jones just not looking as pristine as we expected him to try to look in this offense. Biggest loss that I think Bill Belichick has ever taken, and he even ends up bringing in Bailey Zappi and just letting Mac sit out, which is something that I think we talked about this season. Is something that we should be doing more of when these teams start to get blown out. Russ didn't need to be in the whole Dolphins game. Tua probably didn't need to be in the whole Bills game, but you can argue that they were fighting for most of that game. So yeah, I think that's going to happen. I don't think it's a sign that Bill Belichick is done with Mac Jones, but I think it's a sign that this Patriots Mac Jones experiment could be on its way out. They've got a good back in Ramondre Stevenson. They've built up a somewhat good receiving core, and they've got a usually pretty staunch defense. They're 14 of the points that they get put on them was obviously not that much, anything about 38 points. But the Cowboys defense is a big reason for the game to look as bad as it does. So I don't know. The Patriots here, I guess I'm thinking about Steelers too. The Patriots have some weird directions to go in from here. It's not, the season's not over, so no need to start making any big season changing things. But we got trades. We'll see if they make a splash there and try to get anything done in that realm. But right now, yeah, Cowboys have looked at it again. They're going to need to bring a whole lot of this next week against the Niners, and we'll talk about that in another video. So speaking of the Niners, that's an honorable mention for this category. We're not going to go in depth, but technically, don't say that we're lying. They do count for this category. They beat the Cardinals by at least 17, but the game just looked a little better. So we're not gonna shame for Josh Dobbs in the category and the Cardinals for that one.